Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here. Welcome back to another episode of the IT Business Podcast. We are live on day 2 at IT Nation Connect in Orlando, Florida. And it is the night after the Flow Rider concert. So it is going to be fun. If you've caught the stream before this, you saw the cam shot that I have. The breakfast is literally right outside of our podcasting area. So there will be lots of people coming by, waving, doing all sorts of stuff, but we're going to keep right on rolling. If you've not checked out the show yet, since we've been here, we are here at IT Nation at the Rosen Shingle Resort in Orlando, Florida, and having a lot of fun here, doing a great thing. We are sponsored by Thread, the winner of last year's IT Nation Pitch It contest, and we are powered by Rhythms, the Internet in a Box. So that is how I'm able to live stream here over the hotel Wi-Fi. And with me, I have my first guest today, Cole Knuth, President, CEO of Fifth Wall. So how are we doing, Cole?
Very good. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
You've made it up early.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, getting my talking juices going. Everything IT Nation, everything MSP. It's been a good start to the day.
Yeah. So I guess we'll get started with a little background. So you came over from PAX 8, but as we were chatting, realized that it's not a direct connection, but I used to buy product from your company, well, not your company now, but a company you had or you were with years ago.
Yeah.
Like 15 years ago,
Yeah.
Rexel?
Yeah. Yeah, I worked in the electrical industry for about 8 years before I found IT. I did really well in that space, but it's a blue collar industry.
Yeah.
Had a lot of success. My first management job was with Rexel in West Texas. Became a branch manager out in Odessa, Texas.
Okay.
I was really young, didn't have any idea what I was doing. And believe it or not, as big as that company is, they had no training program.
Really?
Yeah, so Rexel, when I was there, was about $16 billion globally.
They were that big?
They were that big, yeah. 6 in the U.S. alone. It's electrical distributors and like all kinds of markets all over the world.
Right.
Yeah, I basically packed up my stuff, went out to West Texas. They gave me keys to the building, and they shook my hand and said, "All right, well, we're in Dallas if you need us." I was like, "That's a 5-hour drive. Like, I'm like, God, how do I log in? Like, what do I do? Right? Like,
Yeah.
Oh man.
So the office that the storefront, I guess, it was in a little warehouse district.
Yeah.
You had to go like behind the street, around the corner to find it, but they had everything I needed for cabling. They had all the manufacturers.
Yep.
Panduit was the one that I used that nobody used.
Yeah.
Everybody was, Keystone and the other one. But my cable vendor said, no, go get Panduit. Go to this place. And I mean, it was a big old warehouse full of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. And everything from commercial to industrial to networking. That was my past life, and then I got into IT.
So then you weaseled. How'd you make that transition?
It was pretty deliberate. I kind of hit a that proverbial glass ceiling in the electrical industry,
right?
And so I started looking around. I had some friends and family members that were doing well in the MSPs in the IT space.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, there's so much growth here. Career opportunities are incredible. And I was like, I'm pretty young. I was like, I could go try this. If it doesn't work out, I can go back to selling light bulbs. That's my joke, right? I was like, light bulbs aren't going anywhere. They're just advancing, technology wise. So I was like, all right, I'm going to jump over and go do this. And if if it doesn't work out, and go back to working electrical. And I found a PAX 8. That's where.
Okay, so that was literally your first job in IT, because that's not a place you just find in the yellow pages.
No, especially not in 2017. 2017, PAX 8 was small.
Right.
We PAX 8 had just gotten Microsoft. Had taken investment, but my hiring class, actually, the group I started with in November. So ironically, if I was still at PAX 8, it would be my 7-year anniversary this week. When I started, there was like 10 of us, and that put us over 100 employees at PAX 8.
Wow.
And PAX 8 never looked back. We grew like crazy from there.
That was the wingman days still, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, wearing jumpsuits, and unfortunately we had the little squishy grenades at the trade shows, and
Remember those?
it was it was such a cool time to go there because like everything changed like right before our eyes. Like our partnership with PaxAid's partnership with ConnectWise and the integration to solve billing problems, like man, it all just took off, right?
Wow.
And like Microsoft, created better programs and better structure to the way they work with the partner community. So yeah, that was my first job in the tech
So
sector.
I was going to ask, because usually people get into PaxAid, they've been in the space for a while. They've either been an MSP or IT solution provider. You kind of backdoored in. So did you have any IT background before that?
None.
You didn't have an Atari, a Commodore 64,
Nothing.
Coleco, Nintendo.
Nothing that would be impressive. I was a general user of IT growing up. That's it. Everyone's like, hey, it's really hard to make the leap. I mean, luckily, like PaxAid was going through an extreme growth phase. I knew how to generate revenue, right? Like I had ran successful electrical distributors.
Right.
Some of the job right before I came to PaxAid, I ran a $35 million electrical distributor. I had 20 employees. I had 2 trucks. I had like $11 million in inventory. Like I was running a business.
Nice.
So I think PaxAid, Nick, who I actually see over there, I think Nick was probably like, what's the worst thing that happened, right? Like he definitely knows how to sell something.
Yeah,
like
what's the worst? You get
he's
fired?
Like, we can teach him all the IT stuff. So I was all in, man. I jumped in
Wow.
and man, what a great time.
I assume you moved into like a sales manager position, or did you take over a division?
I was an account manager.
Account manager. Okay.
I started as
so you worked your way up.
Oh yeah, we used to be called CSAs, Cloud Solution Advisors.
Right.
And that's what I started as, and yeah, man. From then on, man, I was the first like couple years. I was taking on new challenge or a new team or building a new department every like 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
So I was an account manager about 6 months. Then I started. We used to have like 3 regions. Then we went to like 5.
Okay.
It's because some areas are higher concentration.
Right.
Then I built the Southeast region, and built and managed a team there, a sales manager. Then I became director of sales. Then I was director of revenue operations and worked, closer with Nick on our investment strategy. I've done much stuff, and then led our international expansion. So I became vice president international, moved over to England for 2 years, built out the MSP community in Europe, led PaxAid through 3 or 4 acquisitions over there.
Okay.
So like I did a bunch of stuff over the 7 years I was there.
That sounds like a great trajectory in PaxAid,
Yeah.
and they still have room for growth. So
Absolutely.
my question is, how did Fifth Wall come about, and what made you? Let me rephrase this properly, because what made you transition?
Yeah. So I moved back from Europe to work directly for Nick in a global role, like working strategy at a global level. John Street approached me and he's like, hey, glad you're back. Really cool you're here. Hey, by the way, I've got a hunch about cyber insurance. And he's like, me and Klaus, who's one of the other co-founders back there, said, we've been looking at it. Let's go figure out like what's happening in the cyber insurance space. So I went and dug in, and I was fascinated with like what I was learning, because I was like, okay, there's legitimately a wave behind this. Like there's an economic tailwind
Right.
pushing the cyber insurance market, and there's a lot of volatility, which anytime there's volatility and misunderstanding, there's room for disruption, right?
Yep.
There's room for someone to create clarity in chaos. So we were looking at it, and we knew that if PaxAid did something, it had to be very methodical, and it had to represent the MSP community the right way, right? A sales initiative, discounts, like that wasn't going to solve anything. So we were really intentional. Ultimately, instead of PaxAid directly investing or engaging cyber insurance, we basically decided that it was best for there to be a loose partnership,
Okay.
right, to represent the MSPs, but not direct.
Okay.
Legal
That's
ownership. So-
why I said transition.
Yeah, so it was very cordial, right? We talked about it for a long time, and it was deemed as a really good opportunity for me to go run Fifth Wall, build that as a partnership and connection to the PaxAid ecosystem. Right. So we'll have some really cool stuff that we're gonna do with PaxAid. Right now, Fifth Wall is just trying to we're trying to fix our house up a little bit more for scale, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got to become much more efficient in the way we engage the community, the way we offer some resources. But that was just kind of wrap up that part. Like it was very intentional that I was I left PaxAid and went to Fifth Wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that space is kind of blown up. I'm going to say, for my perspective, the last 18 months or so, we've got
Yeah.
some other players that have come in, and they're providing either more access to insurance, or they're providing ways for us to help our customers
Yeah.
get insurance ready.
Yeah.
Some of them are providing cyber warranty
Yeah.
products and
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So do you have an idea of like where the space is going to be going and what it really means for us? Because we can't directly sell insurance.
Correct. Yeah. Well, it can, but there's so many reasons why MSP shouldn't. Right? Like,
Well,
and
yeah.
maybe we'll touch on that. But yeah, you have to stay away from any discussions around coverages, right? You can talk about cyber insurance, but the moment it comes to any agreements or premiums or coverages, like you have to be careful. That's where,
Right.
you're definitely, an MSP's not, or anybody, you have to be licensed to go
Right.
down that final stage. So where do I see the market going? I think it looks like the main session might be letting out.
Something's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty busy. So the one thing we recognize, and I think you asked me, like, what does the space need? Like, what's the room for disruption as all these things come in? I'm not gonna try to have a premonition about that.
Okay.
I wish I had, very, very explicit line of sight or clarity on that. But I do know that the one thing that needs to happen is the MSP needs to maintain and lead as technical advisor. That's what's the biggest epiphany I had, was the insurance industry's reaction to the topic of MSPs. They're like, oh, we don't work with MSPs. They're an aggregation of risk is the term they use.
Right.
And I was like, well, I mean, maybe from a technical perspective, but that'd be like me being like, oh, well, anybody that works with, a large franchise, auto mechanic franchise,
Funny
I'm
you
not
should
going to insure
mention
their
that.
car. Like, I'm like, that's an aggregation of risk, because what if they use cheap parts and they have a 5% more prevalency of breaking down if you get your car serviced at
Right. Or an
But you-
unapproved aftermarket.
Absolutely.
That sort of thing. And the auto industry, not the industry, but there was a company that got in trouble, selling cyber
Yeah.
insurance to auto,
Yeah.
shops, and didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I've run into that. My biggest vertical is law firms.
Yeah.
And a lot of lawyers dismiss their cyber
Yeah.
insurance because they think they'll litigate their way out of it. But their insurance companies are telling them, you need to provide
Yeah.
these products.
Yeah.
Some people started to provide the products. Yeah, we'll do your EDR.
Yeah.
But then they didn't want to support it. I'm like,
Right.
you can't provide it if you don't support
Right.
it. So then
Right.
it comes back to us anyway.
Right. Yeah. So this idea of exposure management is a reason to lean in, right? And what I noticed, the insurance industry wasn't.
Right.
So that was one of the first things where I was like, oh, there's definitely a space here, because the MSP for the SMB market, SME market, is the primary constituent of risk mitigation. Small businesses don't have the aptitude or skill set, and they shouldn't, right? If they're really good at making a type of food and they run a couple restaurants, that's what they should focus on. They shouldn't be worried about installing an endpoint product or email security or et cetera, backups.
Right.
And so MSPs become the backbone of the IT infrastructure for SMB, right? And so I think, like, because of that, the insurance market, and they're slowly opening their minds about it. I mean, Coalition's here, which is incredible, right? Like, they're one of the largest insurtechs and cyber insurance players in the space. And the fact that they're investing to come to a community like this is that it's a sign that the tides are changing, right? Incredible partner of ours, by the way. So Coalition is one of our primary products that we work with. So we're a wholesaler.
Okay.
So we don't have our own insurance product. We work with 56 insurance carriers.
It's a wholesaler or a broker, or is there a difference?
There's a difference.
Okay.
Because we work with brokers as well.
Okay.
So just to plug for a second, we can work with any client.
Okay.
So an MSP has a client that has a broker, we work with them. MSP has a, and every business has a broker. It's just whether or not they actually want to work with them.
Right.
So if you talk about cyber insurance and they're like, oh, I have somebody, it's like, you can still stay involved. That's one of the things that was really important to me when we were in conversations with Fifth Wall. It's like that access and the flexibility of how we work in the space, will allow us to do what's right for the MSP community.
Nice.
So they don't have to be like, oh, you have a broker? Sorry. An MSP should be involved in that conversation, whether a broker's there or not. Brokers do not understand the IT landscape. They understand coverages. They understand claims. They understand underwriting.
They want to know what is the risk. And it's our job to provide them with the details of, well, here's the risk for this customer. They've got this in place, these protections.
Absolutely.
So they're less at risk than the next one down the street.
Yeah. Speaking of that specifically, I don't know how prevalent this is. I think this is subsiding a little bit, but the MSP community is like, well, I don't want to be exposed. Well, if you're managing IT and you have an agreement with your customer, you already are involved whether you want to or not.
Oh, we're exposed. Period.
Yeah.
If they find something, they're going to point to us regardless.
Yeah. So drive the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Like in a perfect world, in the next 5 years, cyber insurance should become a carrot for the MSP. Right. One of the biggest issues with MSPs and their clients is trying to get them to buy, next generation technology and like adoption. And that's still going to be a challenge, but insurance is different. Small business owners understand financial risk. They understand it's very real for them to be able to say, look, what would you do if you lost 5 days of revenue? A small business owner knows exactly what that would do to their business.
Some of them can lose one day.
Yeah, exactly.
It's shocking how many.
That's the conversation that starts. I mean, that is one very real example of an association small business owners make to understand what cyber insurance does.
Yeah.
Once that conversation starts, the ability to say, look, you can buy a better insurance product or maybe a cheaper insurance product if you have these products.
Right.
It's a different conversation, right? Like going to a business owner and being like, hey, I really want you to use CrowdStrike, but it's going to be a $5 extra per user. And like, I thought I already had protection there. I thought you already,
right.
And it's like, no, but this one's better. It's if I run a construction company, like that is one of a million things I'm worried about. And if I already have something, you're trying to convince me I need something else. Like the chances of that landing on that day when me as the MSP is talking to my client, it's hit or miss, right? Like you said, legal, right? Same thing. Like law firms are like, they're like thinking about 100 things. And a lot of times the owner of a law firm is still managing clients.
Oh, yeah, he is.
So you're like, I want you to buy these more products. They're like, what? Just keep my crap safe and charge me the same amount and leave me alone, right? Like,
my last conversation was one of they're an insurance defense provider.
Yeah, okay.
So their clients are insurance companies.
Yeah, right.
And those insurance companies put out these security requirement documents.
Right.
And one of the provisions, we reserve the right to audit.
Yeah.
Well, as far as I know, they've never been audited.
Yeah.
So what happens is, my last meeting, the customer, I said, do you have any new security requirements? They said, yeah, but they're a small carrier. If we lose them, no big deal. Like, okay, that's not really the point.
Right.
The point is, if you get hit with something,
right,
because we didn't do it, other providers are going to then be able to find out, and you might lose a bigger client.
Absolutely.
So I'm like, doesn't matter how small the client is.
You would never find a law firm that wouldn't have some type of liability coverage on their recommendation and their services. There's no way. Because their liability in litigation is too big.
Right.
But the problem is like, I honestly, look, there's a lot of the market that's still not insured. And when I talk to business owners, not MSPs, I talk to a business owner and they're like, what's cyber insurance? They're like, because I don't have a lot of customer data. That's what a lot of them think. They think it is all about exposure to customer data.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, what if someone locked down your line of business application? What if you couldn't access invoices for 6 months? What if someone intercepted a wire for your largest client?
And we see that happen all the time.
And they're like, wait a second, is that what cyber insurance is for?
Yeah.
I legitimately, the biggest things MSPs should do today is just ask their client about cyber insurance, because they don't even understand what it is.
Right.
They don't even. They're like, oh, I'm a restaurant. My customer data is limited. It doesn't matter. That's not the exposure.
It's handled by my POS system.
Yeah,
they take care of
all that. And it's like, okay, look, like that's not where it starts or stops, right? And so like, a restaurant well, it's legal not to have general liability, but they understand why they have that to cover them, right? They cover in case of a loss. If my restaurant burns down, my insurance company will help me with losses. It's the same thing in the digital world.
Yeah.
Cyber insurance covers for any digital crime, right? Most digital crimes. And so like, that's where the conversation needs to start. If MSP's not having the conversation, someone else is. It's the broker. and you don't want to lose your position as a technical advisor. That's what it comes to.
So I did have that conversation. So one of my clients rents out space to a cafe that they wanted to connect to the network. And I said, okay, well, we got to talk about all the things you're doing on the network. And one of the things that they wanted to do was have, iPad access and people can order on their phones and stuff. And I said, well, we got to lock that down. And they're like, what are you talking about? I said, if you're on the Wi-Fi and we're connected, what if somebody has a Wi-Fi scanner and, intercepts, a transaction? Well, our PSO company covers that. I said, the customer's not going to care. They're going to come after you. And then you're going to come after my client.
Reputation, right? One of the things that surprised me when I got in the insurance world is that part of the coverage you get with a lot of insurance carriers is PR and reputation. They will pay to make sure that you're communicating effectively. So their firm's a part of an instant response that help with. I was like, it makes sense. Makes sense. Like an MSP should have that. In client should have that, right? Like, how are we going to communicate this? What happens next? What do we need to tell people? And it's like, because it's like you said, the customer doesn't care. The person who spent the money, at the end of the day, is like, I don't care what the reason is. You were irresponsible.
You were the ones. I was paying you. It's your fault. Blah blah blah. It's wow. That's a discussion. I know we're having it. But we need to have it more.
Look, and it's a different way to approach, right? Like, I've never been an MSP. I've been around the MSP community for 7 years, right? I have a ton of experience in the space. But like, as an MSP trying to go to a client and be like, hey, I want you to buy this new thing, or I want to expand your services, clients are just like, what? Why? Like, just just do what you were doing before, right? Like, that's probably their thought process. Insurance is a different topic.
Well,
insurance is a different topic.
There's two parts to that. One is we can't keep doing things that we did before because the bad actors, those people overseas, however they view it, because that's how they think. It's, well, China's hacking us. No, it's the kid down the street. So.
Well, regardless, if they take $10,000 from me, it's $10,000.
Right.
It doesn't matter who it is, right?
And most likely you're not getting it back.
You're not. I mean, look, there's companies that are getting better at recovering, and banks are doing a better job, but like, you can't bank on that. No pun intended. You can't just like lean on it and be like, oh, well, they'll take care of me. It's their responsibility. No. Insurance companies are the ones who are motivated to recover the money.
Right.
They are legally obligated to pay out as long as you're truthful and you haven't manipulated or changed what you said, right? Like, imagine like you get general liability and then you uninstall the lock on your door. Well, the insurance company's not going to cover theft, right? If they're like, you took the lock off your store. No wonder the 7-Eleven got robbed, right? Okay, so assuming you leave the lock on and everything stays the same, insurance companies are required to pay out. They're motivated to help you recover. That's why, the one thing the insurance community's done is like instant response plans. Having groups and people, and the MSP needs to be at the middle of this, having groups and organizations that help when a loss happens, right? Help recover.
Having all that stuff in place, the plan, the systems. And I had another discussion with a customer where, I was providing them secure remote access. And they're like, we don't need that. I'm like, yes, you do.
Absolutely.
And I used, an example. They thought, well, nobody knows our IP address. That's not the point. You're not. Does anybody know your home address? I'm like, a thief going down the street doesn't care what the number is.
Absolutely.
They're just going to check and see if your door's open, your window's open, if anybody's home, and if you have an alarm.
Right.
If you're in a gated community, all that stuff. That's where they're like, oh, is it really that bad? I'm like, read the emails I sent you. It's sort of all right. Well, Cole, it's been a good conversation. I think you were here longer than you thought.
No, I love it. I could talk about this all day. It's great, and I love the podcast setup. It's awesome.
Well, I have to thank ConnectWise and Sean Lardo from Pitch It for getting us Media Row here. This is great. And
nice turnout as well.
I don't know if I like the breakfast right across from me, but
I see some like banana bread over there.
We have to go do that. Cole Knuth, Fifth Wall. We're gonna have to chat some more, and
I'd love to.
Stuff's gonna be evolving. And I know that there's stuff coming down in 2025 that will aid us in going to our customers and helping them with that. So we look forward to talking to you some more.
Absolutely.
Right?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, folks, that's going to do it. And I'll leave the webcam up so you can enjoy what is happening here at IT Nation Connect and we'll be back, and we'll see you soon. Holla.
The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. Oh, the sky's the limit. Try to knock me down, I'm getting up 10 times. Better days ahead, so I know I'm alright. Never slowing down, cause I'm body in my pride. I speak it to existence, cause I know that it's my time. Ay, 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 I've been flying to the sky. Ay, 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 I'm on cloud nine. Ay, ay, ay. Ain't no telling when I'm by. Can't stop, whoa. About to make my moves to the top, whoa. Yeah, I got a level on lock, whoa, 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 whoa. Can't stop. The sky's the limit. 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 Gotta level up, that's facts. Only looking forward, yeah, I'm never going back. They always count me out, now I'm finna kinda stack. I gotta level up, I'm gotta blast off, yeah. I got the money, yeah, baby. I'm about to blast off, yeah, baby. Oh, 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 can't stop. They always gon' dog me, but they cannot stop me. Sky's the limit. The 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 sky's the limit. Always gon' guard me. They cannot stop. Always gon' guard me, but they cannot stop me. To all my hustlers, dreamers, love dealers, I'm that kind of girl. Work hard, play hard, for my own heart, might just rule the world. I'm on fire, can you feel the heat? You can try to, but you can't stop me. I'm gonna keep on dancing and taking all the chances. Watch me grow. And if you don't know now, you know I'm unstoppable. And if you don't know now, you know I'm unstoppable. I'm a runner, healer, deep feeler, I won't ever change. Try to break me, can't shake me, go ahead and hate. I'm on fire, can you feel the heat? You can try to, but you can't stop me. I'm gonna keep on dancing and taking all the chances. Watch me grow. And if you don't know now, you know I'm unstoppable. wanna go, I wanna stand on higher ground. I wanna go, I wanna stand on higher ground. I wanna go, I wanna stand on higher ground. I've been waiting on the sideline, waiting on a good time, head in the clouds. I've been holding to a lifeline, waiting on the right time. Time is running out. There's a light in the distance. There's a beat in my chest that won't stop. There's a place that I'm missing. I can see way up at the top. If you wanna go, we could stand on higher ground. I wanna go, I wanna stand on higher ground. I wanna go, I wanna stand on higher ground. I wanna go, wanna stand on higher ground. I wanna go, I wanna stand
Hello, friends. Uncle Marv here with another episode of the IT Business Podcast, coming at you live from Orlando. We are at the Rosen Shingle Creek Resort, and day 2 of IT Nation here in Orlando. We have survived the overnight Flow Rider invasion, and it is fantastic. Our show is presented by Threads, and we are coming with you powered by Rhythms, the internet in a box. And I'm joined here by leading industry analyst, the voice of the channel. Is that how we can say it? Jay McBain from Canalys. Jay, how are you?
Well, thank you so much for having me back. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you back. It's been a while. We've not chatted, and lots has happened in the channel since then. But before we get into that, let me go ahead and ask obligatory questions. How's life? How are you enjoying Orlando? Family here, all that good stuff?
Yeah, we love Orlando as a family. We're Disney annual pass holders.
Nice.
The kids are here. My wife, Michelle, with Sonic Wall is here. And I think we've got Harry Potter tonight and then Disney on Saturday. So we try our best to kind of blend work and home life and balance the two.
And it's great. It's easy to do when conferences are here in our state, right?
That's true, yes.
Did you guys drive up early?
We drove up late last night.
Okay, all right. So you didn't see the Flow Rider?
We did not see. I've seen him a number of times, but it's always a great party.
Okay. So Jay, one of the big things that happened, of course, the keynote here, ConnectWise, they announced a ton of stuff and used a bunch of data, which I wondered if it was your data, and you confirmed that, yeah, it's Canalys data. So let me first ask, when they're coming to you guys for this data, are they looking specific, or are they just asking you, hey, what's happening, and you tell them?
No, it's pretty specific. You can talk at a very high level about 2025 being $5.4 trillion in terms of what businesses and governments will spend. You can break it down. There's $1 trillion in hardware, $1 trillion in software, $3 trillion in services, which happen to be growing faster than the hardware and software. So MSPs here, the 7,000 at this IT Nation event, are actually growing faster than the vendors they represent. So that's when you double click. Let's talk about the buyers. Let's talk about the industries they're in. Let's talk about the segments they're in. Let's talk about how it breaks down regionally, country by country, state by state, province by province. Let's talk about the different layers of the tech stack. There's thousands of them.
Right.
Let's talk about the different models, subscription, consumption, managed, and all these new models coming in. So you can start breaking down the data to the decimal point, 6, 7, 8 different ways. And that's the questions they're asking us.
Okay. Now, how far back lag time is that in the data? I mean, is it close to real time? Are we going back last quarter, last year?
Yeah, so, when you look at data, I mean, we probably collect data 100 different ways. Much of it is quarterly.
Okay.
You rely on what the industry is doing, and when, results come out, and,
Right.
Microsoft will grow at 33% last week and AWS at 19, and you start to make, the trends that are happening, you revert back to kind of the heartbeat that's going on.
Right.
So I always explain, no one predicts the future. No one has a crystal ball, but everything that's going to happen in the future, in the next 10 years, let's say, the trains are already on the tracks. They're already picking up speed. All we're trying to do as analysts is not predict the future. What we're trying to do is just, where's that train going to be? How much speed are they going to pick up?
Right.
And where are they going to be at a certain amount of point in time? So, we could talk about generative AI. We could talk about a new millennial age buyer by the end of this year. It's a demographic conversation. We can talk about this new platform economy, which has taken over everything at this ConnectWise conference. We can talk about the new economics of partnering. So of all the trends that are happening, again, let's revert back to the numbers. What does that mean? What does it mean for ConnectWise? What does it mean for our MSPs?
Right.
What does it mean for the industry? And then that's the conversation that we can double click into.
So one of the big things, of course, the marketplace, the platforms, some MSPs like it, others don't, because they're worried that it's going to allow end users to go direct in a lot of places and stuff. So it's interesting. Are you getting any feedback like from MSPs when they come across you at these conferences? They're like, hey, Jay, what does this really mean for us?
It does. And, we just had an election this week, and you kind of try to control the things you can control and manage the things you don't control.
Right.
So we made one of the most accurate predictions I think we ever made was on marketplaces 5 years ago. We saw this in the very early days where we said that we think they're going to grow at 86% compounded.
And we didn't believe you.
And well, it was a big mark because at 86%, it's almost doubling every year.
Yeah.
And so at that point, you know, a company like AWS and their marketplace would become a top 10 distributor in those 5 years. And now we look back, those 5 years are over and it happened.
Yeah.
There's 45 billion now going through there. AWS is a top 10 distributor. And we're starting to ask now, you know, how many years is it going to take the train on the tracks? It's only a few years before they're a top 5 distributor in the same conversation as TD SYNNEX, Ingram, Arrow, you know, et cetera. So this is one of those marketplace moments. To answer your question, though, one thing marketplaces did is told every end client we have that the value of resale is 3%. In the 1980s, I was selling PCs for, you know, IBM and Lenovo. It was 40%. In the 1990s, it was 30%. Many markets are still 20% plus, you know, in terms of margins. But they've gone and said, if you just collect a customer's money, take on the risk and the net 30, net 60, and go hire BIF to break knees and all the things, like it's not an easy thing to do.
Right.
But it's only worth 3. It's the same amount of money that's swiping your Visa or MasterCard at a restaurant. The movement of money that's the value. But in the economics is, no, partners do so much more than that. An MSP, they're consulting, they're designing, they're architecting, they're co-marketing, they're co-innovating, they're, you know, working around that marketplace. There's so much work that goes into procurement, configuration, pricing, quoting, supply chain, capital credit facilities. But then, you know, the magic of managed services is every 30 days forever. Every company is moving into this subscription consumption model,
right,
which fits perfectly in a managed model where you need a customer for life. So if you spread out all those moments, this economics of partnering actually fits really well in a marketplace. If you collect the money, you know, you make that 3%. If you don't collect the money, there's still 17 or 27% of margin available in private offers. And then the multiplier effect, which is really where managed services needs to go. At AWS is $6.40 that can be made for every dollar of product. At Microsoft, it's $8.45. At Salesforce, it's $6.19. But that's what marketplaces do well, is in terms of enable these margin and multiplier opportunities for MSPs to make even more money than you're making today.
Right. So to that point where services is a big area for us, I spoke with Peter Kajawa yesterday, and he mentioned that for part of our space, even though everything's growing, we're slowing, and a big part of that was wage inflation. Now, that's not a part of your numbers, but I was going to ask, do you actually include that anywhere?
Yeah, well, let's give numbers to the context here. Managed services next year, 2025, will be a $608 billion global business. The North American makes up about 45% of it. So it's truly a global business. But to put that into context, this industry, managed services, is twice the size of the SaaS industry.
Really?
We hear all about Salesforce and ServiceNow and Workday and Marketo and NetSuite and HubSpot. We hear all about their hundreds of billions of dollars that they're worth on the stock market.
Right.
You put that whole industry together with 250,000 ISVs, managed services is twice the size of that industry.
Okay, but that's, when you say managed services, that's not just like the MSP space alone, because there are other areas of managed services outside of the channel, right?
No, those are channel sold managed services.
Okay, channel sold.
But they're not all sold by MSPs.
Gotcha.
There are 337,000 companies that sell into that number.
All right.
Of the 337,000, if you break it up by what percentage of their revenue is recurring, you know, we always count MSPs as 30% or 50% of their revenue is recurring.
Yeah.
There's 86,000 of them that fit the MSP model. But suffice it to say, the global system integrators, accountants, digital agencies, VARs, ISVs, there's 20 other partner types that are selling managed services into this big bucket.
All right, so that's what we've got to realize, because I think the MSP space does kind of think, well, it's just us, but no, it's a whole lot of
and
other
it's more
people.
than just SMB.
Right.
You know, Kyndryl just came out of IBM. They're not selling to, you know, a flower shop down the street. They're selling to banks and insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies, galactic large managed services contracts. You know, tens, hundreds, in the case of governments, billion-dollar contracts. And that's all included in this number as well. So it's a really big industry.
Yeah.
It's actually almost twice the size of the hyperscalers combined as well.
Nice.
And we hear a lot about Microsoft, AWS, and Google every day.
Yeah.
But we don't hear how great managed services is because it's almost twice the size.
Very interesting. So it sounds like we've got a nice, healthy path in front of us. Let me ask another question as we wave at people going by. Session just came out. So, and I just lost my train of thought. How about that? I was going to ask you, private equity. So, of course, we know there's always M&As happening, private equities coming in. We just heard about the CompTIA event that happened. How much of PE is playing into the growth right now? Because I imagine they've got to see there's money there. There's growth there. So that's got to be one of the driving factors that they're coming into our space, right?
Well, they do. The world economy, the global GDP this year is $105 trillion, broken into 27 industries. The tech industry, which makes up about 5% of it, is the fastest growing industry, has been for a long time.
Only at 5%.
Well, it's 5% of the size of the world economy,
Right.
but it's the fastest growing size.
Okay.
So when I'm a money person and I'm trying to buy a bigger yacht, you're looking around and saying, am I going to put more of my time and effort, money, capital dollars into pharmaceuticals, banking, insurance, automotive? Where is my opportunity to get the best shareholder return? Right now, the tech industry is growing by double to triple what the world economy is. Managed services is growing by double that. Things like cybersecurity are growing at the same level,
Right.
12% type of annual growth. Generative AI is growing at 59% annually for the next 10 years. So there seems to be a lot of money people that look at the model of managed services. It kind of, for their thesis, looks a lot like SaaS, which is a recurring
revenue.
sticky,
Yeah.
very valuable because of the customer relationships and the way it delights customers. They're looking at this going, the valuations for the two in terms of getting a return for my shareholders and me buying a bigger yacht seem to be really good. So that's the roll-ups we've been seeing for 10 years.
Right.
This is, how do I take CompTIA's news to say that, there's a $180 million certification business, this A+ certification that, came out in 1993, with more capital, with more arrangements, like one of the buyers actually owns ConnectWise as well. And they own a bunch of security
Yeah,
companies.
they own a lot of.
And they're looking around and looking at the opportunity and saying, if we take some of this money, which couldn't be generated by CompTIA as a not-for-profit,
Right.
given their constraints, but what if we juice that? Could we go and find a way, that 180 million, to get it to $1 billion in the next 5 years? Because if we did that and then made it public or combined it with something and made that public, whichever exit we choose, we're going to make everybody involved a lot of money,
Right.
which is kind of the first rule of capitalism. I'm going to make myself a lot of money.
Yep.
And again, we are the place that people with money can come and make money
Right.
today. So that's what's happened.
So one of the questions I got in a side haul group was, these PE companies come in, they make a company, they do an IPO, and then everything starts to be driven by stockholders and stuff like that. And it kind of loses the shine of what made it great in the first place. I know you probably don't have numbers to validate one way or the other, but is that something that goes into the analysis, though, when you're looking at stuff?
And we do have numbers.
You do,
So keep in mind that this industry, managed services, is 25 years old.
right?
The SaaS industry is 25 years old. There's a lot of history here. So when you look at 250,000 SaaS companies, or if you look at 337,000 MSPs, there's a lot of what we'll say numbers behind what they do. And it's all in a thesis. And in any thesis, you're not going to hit 100% of the balls, but if you hit, 20 out of 100, you'll go to the Hall of Fame. And so the way private equity works and the way they set up these theses is that over time, it's like the house in Vegas. They're always going to
The
win.
house is going to win, right?
So yes, when private equity becomes involved, they inject more money. When more money and more engineering, more marketing comes in, there's a natural tendency for all these companies to go up market. Hey, look, we can start winning in mid-market. Hey, look, we can start winning in the Fortune 2000. Oh, look, we got our first few clients in the Fortune 500.
Right.
Then you get all excited about nabbing these massive Fortune 500 companies that you start to lose track, where SMB is now just a strategy.
Right.
where it's what grew your company, it's the grassroots of your company, like an IT Nation over 20 years. This is your community that you built this massive thing into, and you might even be a billionaire. Like the founder of ConnectWise, founders walked away as billionaires. The founder of Datto walked away as a billionaire. We have several other billionaires, kind of in our chatter right now. There's a lot of money to be made, in terms of the industry we built together. But again, the MSP, which the average MSP is 8 people, it's a family. And when you watch your family members then, have money come in and start to move away, and you're now just a strategy on the side, we always have to be nimble as an industry in making sure that we're aligning ourselves, because there's 35,000 vendors who would love to know us and work with us. Yeah. And if we feel that one of our, tried and true vendors that might have fueled our business for 10 or 20 years is moving away from us, we just always have to have our head on a swivel.
Yep, time to
making
shift.
Sure that we have the right stack for our customers. We have the right stack for us. We can be profitable. We can delight our customers. We can be repeatable. And again, someday when we want to exit, maybe it's a roll up, maybe it's private equity, you never know, in terms of your own business, how everything's going to end up when you want to retire and, obviously get the fruits of your labor.
Right. So Jay, I want to say this. If I were to just simply look at the reports that Canalys puts out, I couldn't read them. But listening to you explain them, I think is one of the reasons people love having you explain them, because we understand. Yeah. And you speak our language, you're in our world, you understand exactly what it is we need to hear to explain what's happening out there. And to, the analogy of where's the train going? How fast is it going? That's fantastic. I love that. So thank you for what you do. And I keep saying this, we got to get together more, but your family travels a lot.
I mean, it's a wonderful industry. But last March, we all got introduced to generative AI.
Yeah.
We've watched the hyperscalers add trillions of dollars of value. This morning, NVIDIA became the richest company on the planet.
It did? I didn't...
Because they're selling all the chips.
Okay.
They're fueling it. But while we're reading magazines and watching TV and watching, billionaires become trillionaires and things like that, we're all tech people. And we're all running a business. We're all employing people who are paying mortgages. We look to ourselves as, what's our opportunity? And that's the research we write is, the trillionaires are going to become tens of trillionaires. And that's just the way the model's built. But how do we draft behind that? How do we become millionaires? How do we become 10 millionaires? How do we become 100 millionaires? Yep. But more than capital, how do we change the world in our locality? How do we change our customers' lives? How do we change our employees' lives? Somebody has to tell the story from these really big $1 trillion numbers down to what it means in my town in Wichita, Kansas. Yeah. And let's, have that conversation. And while all this is growing and we're the #1 industry in the world and stuff, everyone, all boats should rise. And that's a community-led, research model and model that we see here at IT Nation.
I appreciate that. You guys have been touting that for years. I love it. I think just about everybody is starting to understand all boats, all tides rise, all ships.
All boats rise.
So, Jay, I appreciate you stopping by the booth. I know that you're probably in high demand here on Media Row. What do you think of Media Row?
I love it. This is kind of a cool, I love your camera facing outwards as well, getting everybody walking by.
That. Again, it was good to see you. I'm sure I'll see Michelle. We'll have seen her 3 weeks in a row at conferences. And you had mentioned earlier that we see each other more on the road than we do at home. But
there's 270 tech conferences a year. You could go to more than one per day, every business day.
You could, but who would want to?
Michelle and I guess.
Yes. All right, Jay, it was great to have you, folks. Jay McBain, Canalys. And if you want to know where we're going as an industry, they're the place to find it out. So I'm going to turn off the cam here. You guys can watch us. We'll be back with more from IT Nation. We'll see you soon. Holla.